When you're looking at real estate deals, it's easy to get stuck in research mode. You analyze one market, then another, and months go by without taking any action. Micah spent 2 months trapped in this exact same cycle, but then he made a simple change that led him to find and launch his first property, making $5,000 in his first month, all while keeping his full-time job. In this deep dive, we're going to break down how he found and closed his first deal through a single Facebook message, his complete process for setting up and automating the property for under $15,000, and the exact systems he uses to manage everything with less than an hour per week. These interviews used to be part of my paid membership, but I decided to share them here on YouTube just because these strategies are just too valuable to keep private. My name is Preston. I built a $50 million real estate portfolio and make over $400,000 per year in net profit from my short-term rentals. So with that being said, let's jump right into it.
All right, we got Micah here. Thanks for taking the time, man. I know you've been crushing it with your business, so I just wanted to, hop on here to kind of do a breakdown of, who you are. We'll get through all the numbers and all that here in a second. But before we get into all that, if you want to just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey, who you are, and we'll take it from there.
My name is Micah. Name of my company is Corellia Homes. So basically I started later in last year, I guess. Currently manage one property that went live in February this year. I officially began with Airbnb arbitrage, signing up for the launchpad in September 23, and then upgraded to the roadmap in November of the same year. And I found Preston just kind of going through Instagram. I saw one of his kind of short videos inviting to participate in a workshop. And during that video, he just kind of explained some of the same things that I felt like in life that I wanted to accomplish and be like financially free and be there for more time with the family and stuff like that. Is very aligned with what I have been looking for, trying to figure out a way to get the cash flow to start that all. I don't normally go for those, but this was time I did.
Pausing there, and thanks for kind of preparing all this is super helpful for people that are, watching this. So when it comes to, you saying that, you usually don't go for things like this. So do you have kind of like a background in entrepreneurship, whether that's like through your parents, family, or was this just something that was never really on your radar? And like, the video that you were referencing, that was kind of the gateway into diving into something like this.
Yeah, for sure. Entrepreneurship does have an influence in our family. My parents started a paintball park actually in Houston, Texas a while back. And so they grew up to like 3 or 4 different areas, and it was going pretty well. And he partnered with one of his friends, but left it to do other things. But so there has been some entrepreneurship. My brothers and I, we always did entrepreneurial type things, making paper stuff and selling it at school, or buying candy on sale and then reselling it at school, stuff like that. So it has been a big impact in our lives. And then especially in college, I had a research paper where I studied the statistics and academic journals and stuff, and wrote a report on how much time is actually spent in the average lifespan of an American person. And after realizing that it was 30 years total of our life, if you work a 9 to 5 from 18 to retirement, isn't even with the people you love, that really hit me hard. So at the end of college, I was like, what, I need to set up a system that brings me in cash flow money to be able to pay for the liabilities of life and the bills of life and stuff, while still having the time and the freedom that I want. And so ever since I graduated college, I had to get a job still, but I was still looking out, and I was still coming up with ideas. My brother and I, we actually started 2 other companies that both failed. An Amazon FBA, and then we did a true drop shipping company trying to sell fireplaces, and that didn't work either. So I had kind of just started ignoring all the different things you see on Instagram and Facebook. It's like, hey, here's cash flow, how you can make it in stocks. Here's how you can do it buying, 5 houses in 2 years and all this stuff. But then I don't know, I go with my gut a lot of the time, and I saw your video and it just appeared trustworthy and stuff. So I just felt like that was a good move.
So yeah, that's interesting because we have similar backgrounds where, I was the same thing. I tried to start a clothing company, drop shipping, Amazon. Not to say these things, everything does work, right? It just all comes down to your personality, how much time you're willing to commit, how much capital, all that stuff. So I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But what do you feel like, this business in particular, why do you feel like you were able to turn this into something successful?
A big part of it is I very much get nervous with new people. So there isn't too much sales that goes behind it, and you don't have to be face to face on the doorstep, right? So that was a really big one for me, because a lot of businesses you start, you really have to initiate that rapport with people. And so being an introvert / shy and all that stuff, this one was an easier thing to do because it's over call, or the listing I got, we'll talk about it more, but that was through Facebook. So I didn't even have to, talk to the person over the phone call. And so that was actually one of the big reasons why I thought this went well for me. And then, but once I do have that initial connection established, I just talk to people like they've been my friends for a really long time, and it helps me mitigate some of that nervousness. And so moving forward with the company. That's how I was able to do it pretty easily and without hesitation. All right. So for the first Airbnb market, we wanted our first one to be in the city we lived. We understood that that might mitigate a little bit of potential profit, but it was more just like, kind of that nervousness of like not really knowing how it's going. But that was a choice that we wanted to take on personally that way because of our personality, right? Because of our character and how we work. So we did choose Houston, which has potential. There are a lot of people who are doing it here, but it definitely depends on which part of Houston and stuff. After deciding Houston and then looking at all the other areas around, what I really got stuck on for like a month and a half was the analysis paralysis. Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, and I think especially, when it comes to something like this where there's so many different markets out there that could work, right? And so you're like, okay, and I think FOMO, I feel like from more than any other business that I've tried, there's more FOMO in trying to select the perfect market. And heads up, like there is no such thing as a perfect market, but like there's no more FOMO than in this business in particular, just because there's so many different markets you can go after. So how did you eventually, I know you said for a month and a half, you're kind of stuck on that. How did you finally overcome that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Super simple, actually. And it's super hard to do, but I had to trust that if the numbers are there, you just do it, right? I think you mentioned it a few times throughout your classroom videos. I just remember someone was saying, you would just follow the numbers. If the numbers are there, you're going to be a part of those numbers. So at the end of the day, the region, the neighborhood I picked, the numbers were there. The potential was there. It all worked out. The equations, the calculator and everything. It was just a matter of just moving forward. And so I just had to make a conscious decision, no matter how scary it was or risky I thought it was or whatever the other excuses or reasons were. I just had to go.
And I think that you said something really important there, because a lot of people think that, you're just going to put all your chips on red or black. That's not what Micah's talking about here. He's talking about making the calculated decision. So he did all the upfront work. And then of course, like there's going to be some risk involved, right? Even if you do thousands of hours of research. But he just knew that, he's just going to trust the process, trust the numbers, and then just take that leap of faith. And then, eventually, it worked out. And obviously we'll kind of deep dive into the numbers here in a bit. But just to, kind of for people that are on the fence about anything, whether that's asking the girl out or, starting a business, there's always some sort of risk involved. But, eventually you just have to take that calculated risk and just, move forward with it. I think, the next part is, how did you, do this? Like, how did like the research go when it comes to selecting the property? And then also, talking to the landlords, that's something that a lot of people get hung up on as well. So if you want to talk about that.
Basically, the research itself wasn't too bad. I just picked areas around kind of where we lived and then some that I knew were more touristy, like towards Galveston. We even looked at like maybe College Station because there's a lot of things throughout the year that happen, especially sports stuff. There's a lot of alumni that we know that comes for A&M and stuff. They have a huge alumni base. We looked at all those. We really just followed how your videos were in doing the research, plugging it in the numbers, seeing what came out of it. And then at the end of the day, we decided on, so we looked at Zillow, looked at realtor.com. I put all those filters in for rent and everything and put our budget. And I can't tell you how many times I researched the same darn region or neighborhood over and over again, part of that analysis paralysis, in the same homes, comparing the same. And that was a lot of the time wasting that happened. But we just followed and we did. And at the end of the day, for my first one, I definitely was nervous to start making phone calls. So like straight up, I took the Facebook market messaging approach, which you have a video on that too. But so I saw that and I was like, you know what? I can't handle talking to someone. So I'm just going to actually start messaging people. And I don't know. I just got super lucky. It was literally the first message I sent. 5 minutes later, he messaged me back. I think that was an outlier for sure. That does not happen normally from what I understand. And we just kind of hit it off from there. Right off the bat, he was just like, yeah, no, that sounds like an interesting idea. Let's talk about it more. Come over.
Love that. And, a lot of people might be like, oh, you were lucky. But, Micah put himself out there and I'm a firm believer in that you create your own luck, right? You're not going to get lucky by just sitting there and running a bunch of numbers. You're going to get lucky by actually putting yourself out there and putting in the action, which is what Micah did. It sounds like the landlord that you first contacted seemed open about it. Every single deal that you go through, there's always some sort of, things that you have to overcome, right? Like objections and stuff. So what did you do? Like, how did that conversation go from, that beginning conversation to when you were able to finally, negotiate and finalize all the agreements?
There were definitely a few hiccups and I got them listed in a couple other slides, few barriers. But the main thing was the timeline crunch. And he was like leaving to buy another house, but essentially he had to stay in the house because they hadn't moved out. It was just this weird thing of timing. And essentially I just had to negotiate a little bit. And we had agreed on the rent price and the security deposit and all that stuff. And in one of your videos, you're like, get a lower security deposit if you negotiate this. And so we had done that. But then I was like, hold on a sec. Like if you're starting the lease, but you're going to stay in it for, it was like a week or two or something. I can't even even remember exactly, but it was just really weird. And he wanted to stay in the home so he could get everything moved out because of the closing date for his house, his new house. Anyway, so I was just like, you know what? Here, what if I, do a normal security deposit? I essentially just negotiated. That was my overcoming, was negotiating the price. And so that way he moved out on the date that the lease started. But the biggest barrier was he didn't feel comfortable, because I was just kind of upfront and honest about it. Not that you're not if you don't say it, but I just, from the beginning is what I mean. Like, I brought it all up essentially and was like, this is my first house. I've run other companies before, but not like an Airbnb or real estate type company. So that's what he was really nervous about. And so we went back and forth on that. And at the end of the day, what it came to was just essentially I agreed to put my personal name on the lease alongside the company as the financial responsibility party. The contingency was if, it failed or whatever, and the company wasn't bringing in the revenue to pay, that I would pay personally out of pocket, but that all the liability and stuff would obviously be in the company. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're just basically just being a financial guarantor essentially for the business. Yeah, that makes sense.
There were a few big mistakes because we had those barriers, but at the end of the day, we actually got along really well. Our families got along and everything. And so there was just this kind of trust that was established, and there were some verbal agreements made. So my big thing is if I could go back, I'd get everything in writing, everything in the contract. Basically, it pushed back. And these were some of the barriers that I was talking about earlier. Push back the listing about 3 weeks, a few extra bucks out of pocket to kind of clean up and fix things that he didn't. Like the day we were supposed to move in, it was February 3rd, the Saturday, nothing was clean. They had moved everything, but they didn't vacuum, they didn't wipe down, they didn't repaint, nothing. And so that set us back. I hired people because he wasn't liable in the contract, all this stuff. And so I also trusted them, and they said that everything was working fine. They just renovated, replaced the heater, replaced this and that. But at the end of the day, that was not 100% true. Maybe with a lot of the main stuff, but there were the pool heater, that has a leak in it. So not only am I using even more gas, I'm using even more water, stuff like that. There were those barriers, and that was a lot more money out of pocket. But at the end of the day, it did work out. We got it sorted out. And the landlord was the one that drafted the rental agreement. So I just would have been more, if I'd known, had more experience, I would have been more involved and hands-on in all that, get it in writing.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. No matter how nice the guy seems or how many promises they make over the phone or messages, you have to make sure to get everything in writing, which is, something that you've learned and you'll use for future properties moving forward, I'm sure. If you want to just go on, I know, the next thing we want to talk about is just the design stuff, what your budget was, how, we were able to coordinate all that, et cetera.
We just hired a friend who has a degree in interior design. Everything was pretty much from Amazon and IKEA per her recommendation. To furnish the entire house, and the outside fire pit, deck, pool was all about $15,000. So we went more definitely on the budget friendly side. We did splurge on a couple of things, but nothing major.
It's a pretty big property, so $15,000 for all that stuff, and then having that interior design person is key, especially in this market where you have to have properties that stand out. And so I'm assuming you're going to be showing some of the pictures of your listing here in a little bit, right? So after you walk through this, maybe we can just share the screen of some of the pictures of what your property looks like.
So basically, when it came to creating and enhancing the Airbnb, I really just followed Preston's videos as much as I could. To do the description and a couple other summaries and stuff, I did ChatGPT. I just put in the info, and then I tweaked it a little bit. For the photographer, I'm just a networker too, when it comes to business stuff. And so everyone I did for, and I'll talk about this a little later too, but handyman, cleaners, the photographer, interior designer, we just went over, all those people were who I've networked with over the last year, 2 years. So the photographer is actually a real estate photographer on the side, and he's someone I work with. So we just hired him, discounted, of course, and just interior designer to be able to maximize and optimize our input on that financially. The property is about 30 minutes away. We moved it all in, set it up all on our own. Like I said, we wanted to be more hands-on. We wanted to see it. Moving forward, I don't think we really care, but for this first one, we just wanted to see it all in person physically. And so to do the cleaning, we hired people we know from our congregation and our religion. And then the landlord specifically only wanted contractors working on his house. I did have his contractors. I did have a handyman that our extended family used, but then he was like, hey, I need to do it unless you want to pay out of pocket. So that was how that worked.
How's that gone with the landlord's handyman? Is there any issues there, or do you feel like they've been pretty good.
No, definitely. And it's caused a few barriers. I would highly recommend getting that in writing as well, like a timeline on when repairs, when things need to be installed or replaced or whatever. They get to it, but the turnaround time is way too long. And I've actually had a few issues with like guests because of the turnaround time.
Yeah. Again, kind of goes back to get everything in writing, leave nothing to chance, right? And, just going by off what the landlord says, I think that's super important. Just to make sure everything's on the same page. It is a little bit tedious at first, but once you have everything in writing at the very beginning, then it just, will make sure that everything else is streamlined.
Totally worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So good lessons there.
Cool.
All right. So we got Micah's property pulled up here. So if you want to just kind of walk through, maybe whether that's your ideas or your interior designer's ideas on, why you put the things that you did, and take it from there.
So here's our first picture. It's a picture of the pool and the spa. We got cornhole on the side too, just as like kind of an accent to try and, make it a little bit more exciting. We're going to go back in actually and retake some of these photos, but we were just trying to get it in place in time for the move-in and everything. But in the meantime, it does what we need, and everybody that's contacted us says that it looks fun and exciting and inviting. So it's been good. The interior designer recommended these. She originally wanted 6, but I thought that was too many. So we just brought it down to 4. Here's the living room, fireplace, TV. It was really, honestly, the interior designer. We ended up putting some greenery here just to give it, again, more of a comforting, more inviting feeling. Everything that we got was from the interior designer, all the recommendations and everything. There were some things so I don't know if you can tell, there's some paneling along the walls and stuff. She was trying to put decor like halfway, but it comes off like a 1/4 inch. So a lot of that we said, hey, let's not do that. At the end of the day, she agreed. She was very open to getting suggestions and everything too, which I am still open to getting suggestions and feedback as well. Like, for example, one of the things, this tree, he was supposed to take out before we even moved in, and it's still there. And then we got warning for pools and stuff, warning signs and everything. There's an umbrella here now. Just kind of put up some of those cafe lights and stuff, Easter lights.
Yeah, this is a really cool property with, you did a great job highlighting the backyard with the pool, the spa. In the interior looks super clean and inviting. I mean, really, really great job on the property here.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, they did. So the owners renovated and repainted and stuff, like the colors and stuff. So that was all them, which they did a decent job. And then we just came in with the furniture. But yeah, it came together at the end of the day.
So yeah, let's talk about how you're able to automate your business, right? Just because when I first started off this business, I was just like, man, I don't know how I'm going to operationally run this business, just because it's going to take me, it's basically going to turn into part-time to full-time job. So what are some of the tools that you're using to be able to automate your business, and we can just start going into what your occupancy rates and some of the numbers there as well?
I do everything as much as I can as recommended, because that's what's worked, so why not do it? So I do use Price Labs. I do the dynamic pricing. I use Guesty. I'm still trying to figure out the Venmo interface. It's a little different than Airbnb. It's not as newbie friendly. I don't know if that makes sense. Airbnb is very beginner friendly and stuff. And so still working on the Venmo stuff, but I have it linked and everything. And then the guests have just been pretty good, respectful and understanding. I had my first bad guest. That was a whole thing. But once my cleaners though, they're moving. So I will be using Torno. I got the account set up and everything, and I got someone on my team as a backup as well. So once my cleaners are gone, then I will be using Torno per Preston's recommendation again.
Yeah. So what does the busy season look like? And then what's kind of like the slower season in your market?
For sure. So busy season is definitely like March, and then holidays in terms of like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then in the summer. So basically March, because of spring breaks, people come to visit their families a lot and then head down to Galveston, and they'll stay here and travel to Galveston because it's only like an hour and a half away. And then during the holidays, again, it's a lot of visiting family. Slow months, like April's gonna be pretty slow. The fall months, like school starts, right? September, the end of August, a little bit of October. So it's going to be some slower months. But the end, it's interesting here in Texas, or at least Houston, the end of April and the end of May have these spikes. And I didn't realize this before. And this is something I wish I had gone into in part of the research too, is just to have that much of an edge on the numbers. But weddings, a ton of weddings happen like at the end of April and at the end of May. So I did get a booking for 2 nights. That's like, I think it's like a $1,200 booking just because they're having a wedding here.
It sounds like you know the numbers pretty well as well. You know when to expect the slow season, so you're not freaking out like, why am I not getting any bookings, right? It's like usually typically, just a market related thing, and then you can try to, adjust your pricing to, try to pick up a couple of days here and there. But, again, it's all about, managing the expectation. And then, you kind of I like to always go back to the 12-month aggregate. So if the numbers from the last 12 months aren't meeting your expectations, then you might have to, figure out, okay, what can you do to tweak things to maximize, occupancy and also revenue, or, is something else related? So that's always good to kind of have that full 12-month picture before, making a rash decision on something. So yeah, let's kind of move forward with the financial breakdown of just, what it looked like for the month of March, or, whatever you have prepared here.
For sure. And I will say that the days that we were actually booked, we did over our average daily rate almost every single night. That kind of surprised me as well. We were doing almost 300 a night, and our nightly average rate was 250. So that we were anticipating, we did the numbers for. So we grossed a little over 5,000 for the 1 month we were live. We estimated about 4,500, 4,000 conservatively, 4,500. And so that was a pretty good turnaround. The profit is zero, but I don't think that is a long-term. Obviously, we've only been live for 1 month, and we had to cover, February as well, and the issues with the landlord, all that stuff, which is lessons learned. So maybe not zero profit. Yeah, that the numbers worked out that way, but I fully anticipate that moving on, we'll bring in about 15 to 2 a month is what I'm estimating.
Yeah. And again, definitely learning lessons. You've only been live for, a month or so. So that's definitely, things that you can use to move forward. But, now that you've had some guests, you seem like March was a pretty strong month. You're getting those reviews in, and that's going to ultimately help boost your listing for when the summer months come along. Your listing will be humming along. And so, obviously I'm sure you're excited about that here.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one thing I did too is friends and family, I would offer, them to go stay the night and stuff so that they could leave reviews. Obviously they have to go stay the night, but and be honest about what they thought about the house and stuff like that.
So yeah, let's see what's what are you looking at for the end of the year, and with this business in general, what are we looking at here?
So I'm hoping to have about 4 properties total by the end of this year. So 3 more, bringing in about $8,000 total profits, net profit. Planning to invest about 4 to 6 hours a week to get the houses, each Airbnb setup, and then about a half hour to an hour per week maintaining. That's what we're going for. The end goal is I want to do that in order to accomplish this, which I want to leave my job. I do plan to do it in 3 years just because there's a lot of benefits with the job that I signed on for. So the job I signed on for gave me a lot of great bonuses and stock options and stuff like that. So this is probably too much detail for anybody, but I will be staying with my job for those benefits. But I do plan, and if I didn't have these, I would 100% quit at the end of the year when I'm bringing in $8,000 a month, because that way I have the time with my family, I can cover my bills, and I don't need that anymore. So that's my plan.
Cool, man. Before we wrap up here, appreciate all the insights, breaking everything down. Anything else you want to end with here?
My big things, honestly, that I would just say is make the decisions. Give yourself timelines, make decisions, don't get stuck, and then follow as perfectly as you can every single video, all the classroom teachings. At the end of the day, I did skip a couple things because personal life stuff going on, and so I thought I could conserve time here or there, but really just take the extra time. That's where, and you're gonna get more money out of it at the end of the day, because I wish I had done that, and I know that now, and that's what I'm going to do moving forward. But those are my big recommendations and suggestions.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate the time breaking everything down. Best of luck with this property and your business. Excited to touch base with you. Seem like a hungry dude, ready to make these goals a reality. So looking forward to your journey, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. See you, Micah. Hey, so if you're just tired of watching others succeed with Airbnb and you're serious about building your own business, me and my team can help you make that happen. If you're interested, you can shoot me a DM, or you can click the link below to apply, and we'll set up a time to chat about how we can work together to build your Airbnb business and scale it to $10,000 per month and beyond. Link should be right below this video, or again, you can shoot me a DM. Talk to you soon.